following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Degraw's Yankees. I'm with the man himself, Jack Degraw. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you today, Ralph?
Yeah, I'm great. I didn't even say it. I'm Ralph Tycho, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We got a Yankee podcast going that is terrific, Jack. Thanks for being the man.
Well, I'm nothing without you, Ralph.
Well, I don't know if that's the X factor involved, X plus Y, but thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Well, I'm nothing with you, Ralph, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. I was trying to be nice about that. With me or not,
yeah,
I'm the guy for you. If you want to be nothing, jump on my back, and I'll take you there. But it's all in our minds. I think we're something, and if I think we're something, eventually we'll be something. How about that?
It's just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time. And what we like to do on this show is go back in time every now and again. I'm going to ask you first for a quick update on the current Yankees off-season, any real trade rumors going, anything you could think of that should have been done. Would have you liked to have gotten Cano back? Just curious about that, because as a Met fan, I have mixed emotions about that trade.
Well, I think as a Yankee fan, it might have been nice to get Cano, but I don't think they really needed him. I think it is better that the Mets got him, because at least it shows the fans, well, we're trying to do something, and the guy can still play. But the key to that whole trade might be Diaz, the bullpen guy.
Absolutely. He's terrific. First thing I thought of, because I was really happy that the Mets established a very, very young and comparable play combination last year. That was about the only upside. So I thought, because Seattle was in a salary dump mode with Cano, and the Mets took him on basically for Diaz, to balance it out a little bit, I would have enjoyed seeing the Mets flip Cano to the Yankees for Ellsbury. What do you think of that?
Well, I haven't heard that before, but that's
no, that's my thinking. It would have been a good deal for both teams. The Mets need somebody to play center field on a regular basis. Lagares gets hurt every Thursday, and I'm thinking that Ellsbury has rehabilitated his woes and may be a perfect solution. He's not going to play center field for the Yankees, so I thought that would be good. It's not going to happen. Cano's going to be a Met. I don't know what they're going to do with McNeil, move him over to third, platoon with Frazier, maybe make Frazier a first baseman if Alonso doesn't pan out. I don't know. We'll see. But as far as the Yankees are concerned, I think they're dead set on moving Torres to shortstop until Didi comes back. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, but I do think they will pick up, a veteran infielder, who can play a couple positions. And they have picked up some guys, who can maybe fill the need for a couple games. And another thing, Ralph, that Tyler Wade could probably fit in for a few games too, because he's an excellent fielder.
No question about that. No question. Did they have any plans for Walker? I'm just curious.
As of right now, I haven't heard anything. I think you'll start seeing Concerning Walker, you might see something like in January and stuff after they make some moves and make some trades and things like that. But I think he's still in their plans, maybe, but he's on the back burner.
Okay. I got my update. One more thing I got to ask you. There have been trade rumors about Sanchez and perhaps going to the Marlins. How is that panning out?
Well, right now, Ralph, they're just rumors. But like I say, I mean, Sanchez, I wouldn't give up on him yet. I mean, the defense is a concern, but when you have a bat like that, I mean, I'm not, ready to give up on Sanchez yet.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether the Yankees are ready to give up on Sanchez yet.
Well, they're going to overrule me.
Okay. And me. And you're on my back. We're on the train to Nothingville. So they're not going to listen to us at all. But, maybe they should. Maybe they should.
Well, you never know, Ralph. And another thing, Corbin went to the Phillies for like $140 million.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Ralph, I think the Yankees did the right thing concerning that, because I wouldn't give a guy like that much money. I mean, he's had some success in the big leagues, but he's 2 games over 500. And it's not like, they picked up Catfish Hunter or Tommy John or CeCe and stuff. You're getting a guy that you really don't know. I'd rather see him have Hap anyway. I think he could help more for next season.
I think Hap was a tremendous bargain, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he filled the bill. He proved what every player has to prove if they're going to come to New York. Is one capable of playing in New York? Some are, some aren't. And Hap gave him good innings, and I think he'll get more of an opportunity this year. And he's young, and like I say, came relatively inexpensively. It's not my money, and I know inexpensively by today's standards is just like a big joke, because what guys are making today, when we grew up watching ball, no comparison. But let's go back and honor something that I've been thinking about with the Yankees for a long time. From 1949 to 1953, the Yankees won 5 World Championships in a row, never to have been repeated since. And probably, I'll go out on a real limb, that will never be matched. That is the all-time great. And I thought we'd talk about that a little bit. I'll start with saying that was Casey's first year in 1949, and the streak of 5 years in a row encompassed something that was unimaginable, because they got rid of DiMaggio. DiMaggio retires, and Mantle, right in the middle of it, right in the middle of that streak, without missing a beat, Mantle comes in, DiMaggio's gone, and the streak continues. And that's I'll just lay the groundwork for the discussion with that, and you tell me what your response is.
Well, I think there's so many amazing things about that run, but I think you start with the pitching. When you have Ali Reynolds and Eddie Lopat and Vic Raschi, I mean, they averaged over 50 wins a year during that stretch. And in the World Series.
Early on, they add Whitey Ford coming out of the surface to that mix, and as you say, it was already great, and Whitey Ford made it better. what I liked about the pitching was their versatility, and Casey thrived on that in the infield, but he doesn't get as much credit for how he used the pitching staff in those days vis-a-vis Ali Reynolds, who was probably their closer, if by today's standards they use the term as an exclusivity. When you think of your closer, you don't put him in different roles. But Ali Reynolds started a number of games, relieved another number of games, and was very, very instrumental in that run.
Well, if you look at the World Series results for the 5 years, the Yankees won 20 games, and Ali Reynolds either had the win or the save in 9 out of those 20 wins. And I believe he was involved in 60% of those wins.
Whoa, that's a great stat, Jack. Terrific. You referred to having the 1951 yearbook. Am I correct?
Yeah, I've got everyone from 50 through 65.
Whoa, nice collection. And as we talked about, I don't remember if it was on the air or off the air, my favorite Yankee yearbook was the 57 unofficial Yankee yearbook. And you told me that was, what was J. Bell? J?
It's J Publication.
J Publications. Okay, still haven't looked for that, but I'm going to find it on eBay. 51 Yankee yearbook. If you opened it up, I don't have it. What would surprise a fan by looking in the 51 Yankee yearbook?
Well, one of the things is during the year the Yankees would revise those yearbooks. So you might buy a 51 Yankee yearbook and you might not find Mickey Mantle in there.
Very good point. He was, as a matter of fact, in 51, an instrumental year in my baseball fandom. He was sent out to Kansas City, then a Yankee farm club, and they remained a Yankee farm club even when they were in the majors, I might add. But as great as he was sent out, almost quit the game. Terrific story about his dad not accepting Mantle's desire to quit and just poking him in the butt a little bit. All of a sudden he comes back and blossoms into the Mick that we knew.
Yeah, it's an amazing story because, he was a 19-year-old kid. And could you imagine stepping in to Joe DiMaggio's shoes?
Whoa.
I know he had a great spring training, but he's from a small town and from Oklahoma, and all of a sudden you're in the big city and everybody expects you to, be another Joe DiMaggio.
Right. And, there was always talk about how DiMaggio either contributed to his success, Mantle's, or held him back. And there have been a lot of false rumors that DiMaggio and Mantle really didn't get along. Now, DiMaggio was not the most congenial guy in the world, but he wasn't the jerk towards Mantle that was led on. I've talked to a lot of people. Tony Castro, who did a book entitled DiMaggio and the Mick, and a number of other people, including Peter Golenbach. They were not as tight as can be, but a picture of DiMaggio leaning down over Mantle when he stepped in the drain in the 51 World Series, and DiMaggio leaning over him with this concerned fatherly figure, did not hate Mantle and wasn't his enemy. From everything I know, I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, another factor is, there's, the 17-year age difference, and Joe D is just trying to hang on at that point. He's coming off the heel trouble. He's starting to lose these great skills, so, he's got a lot on his mind, too, because he's not Joe DiMaggio anymore.
Right. That's right. And one of the most wonderful thing about Joe DiMaggio is he retired rather than have people see him in as a run-of-the-mill ball player. He had too much pride for that. He could have played another 2-3 years for sure, but he just went out on top, so to speak.
Yeah, he had a lot of pride. He don't want to hang around and hit 260, 270 and play 80 games. So, I can really respect that. You don't want to wind up like, poor Willie Mays in New York, even though it wasn't as bad as a lot of people remember. But we remember Willie falling down the 73 series, and it was a sad thing to see.
It was a sad thing. Twice in that 73 series, he kind of slipped. And it was, and that's, the old expression, a ball player dies twice. Once, of course, when he dies, but when his career is winding down or ending, and it's a big adjustment. DiMaggio landed on his feet. He got two incredible contracts. One was Mr. Coffee, and one was he had a Commerce Bank or one of the banks in New York that he represented for a long time. And he made almost as much money with those contracts, those endorsement contracts, as he made when he was playing. And, of course, he had he was storied for having been married to Marilyn Monroe and had the song written about him, which really wasn't written about him by my favorite composer, Paul Simon, one of my favorite composers. Where Have You Gone, Joe DiMaggio?
Yep.
And he took that song wrong, and he snubbed Paul Simon for a while, and finally they got together, and he was made to understand that it wasn't a knock on Joe DiMaggio. It was something where people were looking back to Joe DiMaggio's time, the way Paul Simon wrote the song. In any event, Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle, can you imagine? You couldn't write fiction like those two greats following each other in the Yankee batting order.
We were talking about Joe D retired at the right time. Look what happened to Mickey Mantle. The last 4 years of his career, Ralph, he lost 10 points off his career average.
Right, and he was so sad not to be a 300 hitter. That really bugged him a lot. I will say one thing about Mantle. A lot of his physical woes were not self-imposed so much, but not really rehabbed properly. He was very remiss about that. He didn't take good care of himself. His old joke was, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. But it wasn't funny because it was more than just his baseball skills that ended up tragically cutting his life short. And there's an eternal sadness in baseball having lost him at a young age. He was the Mick. And folks that didn't grow up in New York folks that aren't baseball fans, the Mick. And I will refer you and the listeners to a YouTube tape of his retirement or his honor. They honored him. And all the old players came back and went to their position. And it was so goosebump raising, no pun intended with Gossage, so goosebump raising to watch Mick get like a 12-minute standing ovation. They wouldn't stop clapping for the man. And what makes it so incredible, they loved him so much, and when he first came up, they didn't love him at all. It was Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle home run contest in '61 to break Babe Ruth's record that finally, after all those years, endeared Mickey, perhaps for the wrong reason, but endeared him indeed to the fans in New York. And once they took to him, there was no other fan-player relationship that was that strong the way I see it. In all the years that I've followed baseball, haven't seen anything like that. You could say, well, the fans love Roberto Clemente, but they loved him after he died. And with Mick, they loved him unabashedly while he was still alive. So that's one of the niceties of sports. You get to see that once in a while, things like that.
Well, I remember that. I think that was June 8, 1969, and it was a doubleheader between games against the White Sox. And it was a special day, and I've watched it on YouTube. And anybody who's listening, I encourage them to watch it because it is something special. I'll share a story with you, Ralph. In July of 1996, I went to a Yankee game, Yankee Stadium, to see a doubleheader, and they had Mickey. They had a card there, a big card for all the fans to sign. And I regret I never got a chance. I didn't sign it. I just wish I would have signed it.
Yeah, that just knowing you signed it would have been nice.
Yeah.
What I liked about it is that literally all the players, were still alive at that time. If you look back, very few of any are alive, but Heinrich and all these guys going out, and Phil Rizzuto going out to their position. It was just, and then they brought out me. You had the goosebumps going from these guys being introduced all the way along, and they brought out Mick, and they had him drive around a little cart, driving around the stadium, if I recall, and like I say, 12 minutes of standing there clapping. They could not seat these people down to get on with it, and it was really nice. One of the things that I do to satisfy my nostalgia is play that YouTube thing every now and again. So I highly recommend it, and I'm glad you do too.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, Ralph. Like down here, I got to meet Johnny Blanchard and Tommy Tresh and Al Downing, and Phil Linz, and all these guys, and they raved about Mickey Mantle.
Really?
Yeah. They love Mickey Mantle. Tom Tresh named his son after Mickey.
Really? That's very interesting, because Tom Tresh's dad was a major leaguer, and his name was Mike Tresh, not Mickey. I was thinking for a second it might have been Mickey. Tom Tresh was an interesting guy. He came up with Quebec. They were in competition for the shortstop job for a while. And Tresh got it when Kubek went back in the service. I think he was in the reserves. So he had it for a while. Didn't pan out to be the superstar that he was. He and Mercer both didn't pan out as great as they were hyped.
Well, what happened to Tom Tresh, and I remember asking him, he said in '67 they were playing an exhibition game. I don't know if it was in Fort Lauderdale or Miami, and they hit a ball down the left field line, and he went to get it and throw the guy out at second. He made a pivot, and he tore his knee. And after that, he just lost all his power and stuff. But he was so good, Ralph. I mean, there was talk of trading Tom Tresh for Carl Yastrzemski. And I mean, if you look at Tom Tresh's early career, he was incredible. I mean, he hit a home run in the World Series against Kovacs and Bob Gibson. And I mean, he was really something special. It's a shame he didn't stay healthy.
Yeah, that going back a little bit too, where you get an injury, an arm injury, a knee injury, they didn't have the type of surgery. They didn't have any of the orthoscopic surgery. A lot of careers could have been saved. And what I think of is the myriad of pitchers that the Yankees had: Cooks, Grimm, those guys that got Ditmar, that were hurt and it turned out to go on the train between Kansas City and New York, the aforementioned farm system. But a lot of Sturdivant was another one who turns out hurt.
Bob Turley.
Pardon me?
Bob Turley.
Bob Turley as well, absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting when we look back on the '61 Yankee team, which was perhaps the greatest of all, given that 4 catches hit over 20 homers. Mantle and Maris were going for their record. And the infield was perhaps as good because Casey would move the infield around a lot from year to year, from game to game. In '61, they had the same 4 guys playing virtually every day, and they just happened to be the best defensive infield that the Yankees ever had. Clete Boyer, you can't say enough about him. Pepitone was terrific defensively.
Well, they had the Moose then.
They did, right. Pepitone came a year or so later. In '62, Moose got traded to the Dodgers, if I remember correctly.
And he won a World Series with them.
That was in '63. You're absolutely correct. He and Blanchard both were never the same emotionally after leaving the Yankees. Blanchard literally broke down and cried.
Yeah.
They just didn't want. There was something about the pinstripes in those days that were incredible, and yeah. So that '61 team with Kubek, who had again took over for Tresh definitively. I didn't realize that was a knee injury, and that kind of explains it. He was decent. He went on to play in Detroit, where he didn't embarrass himself by any means. But after what he could have been, it was sad.
Yeah, it was. And another point I'd like to make out, Ralph, I think this is kind of interesting. In '61, after Roger Maris hit his 61st home run, Ralph Houk didn't take him out of the game.
didn't think of it in those terms. Was Aaron taken out of the game after his home run?
Well, the only reason I say that, Ralph, it was the last day of the season, and they started the World Series, right after that. So no, I think No, go ahead, Ralph. I'm sorry.
No, that's a very good point. That you might have taken him out and rested him a little bit. Roger left New York on bad terms. They misdiagnosed, or they didn't tell him the correct diagnosis of his hand injury, and kind of ruined his career. If on some levels, took away his power. Went on to St. Louis, and they won a couple of world championships with him. He got a beer distributorship through Anheuser-Busch as a result. But, things turn out the way they do. Would you talk about that hand injury a little bit?
Well, from what I understand, Ralph, he got hurt on a slide at home plate, and the Yankees misdiagnosed it. Well, and they wouldn't, they kept throwing him in the lineup, put him in the lineup because, they were starting to decline then, and Mickey was getting hurt. A lot of the big guys were, on a downward swing, and they never told Roger, they said it was a slight hand injury, and find out he had a broken wrist.
Right, and I think they knew about it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And then he asked them not to trade him. He wanted to retire. And they traded him to the Cardinals for Charlie Smith.
Right. Good memory. Charlie Smith later became a Met. And I think Charlie Smith was traded to the Mets for another famous ball player. I can't. Memory slips. But, yes, Charlie Smith, rest his soul, too. He passed away recently. And, again, was the heart of that Cardinal team. He's a terrific all-around ball player, had a great arm, very underrated was most valuable player before he made that home, the year before.
Yeah.
So if people say, well, he was just a home run hitter. He wasn't. He was a hell of an all-around ball player. I don't think he's worthy of the Hall of Fame, but nevertheless, terrific ball player.
Yeah, Roger was always my favorite player and still is. From 1960 through 64, he might have been the best player in the game. Well, he was certainly up there.
That's a bold statement, but very, very. It's all subjective.
Oh yeah.
With talk like that, but you'd make a great argument, and it's the kind of thing that podcasts are made of. Just this discussion and beating it around the bush. Hey, this was a good one today. I like talking. I like our hot stove league moments.
Well, I really enjoy this too, Ralph.
Okay. With that in mind, send me a picture for the website.
Well, okay. I took some pictures last night. They really didn't come out like I wanted to, and I put some of the 51 program in there, and most of them come out good. Some didn't come out good. But I will send the picture out
never
tonight.
Come out like I'd want them to. It's just an automatic. So, just send me one so I could put it up there, and because you've got a page on the website. It's Degraw's Yankees. It's quickly become one of my favorite shows on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I enjoy your company, Jack.
Well, thanks for everything, Ralph. I appreciate it, and I'll get that picture out tonight.
Beautiful. You be well, my friend. Thank you for listening, everyone. Just as a side note, if you enjoy our offerings, would you do us both a real solid? Take time, accumulate some new or lightly used children's books, put them in a box, big old carton, get a bunch of books, make it a neighborhood drive, get books together and take them down to the Head Start program and let those kids who need a head start get a head start by learning to read, appreciating reading, developing an imagination, a passion, becoming school ready, and it will do a world of good for society to get as many kids reading as is possible. I developed my passion through sports, baseball, this, that, and the other thing, from reading about it, letting my imagination go, getting my nose. There were no devices to get my noses out of in those days, but today kids need to get their noses out of their computers and read books. And if you will do that, get some books over to Head Start. Wherever you live, there's a Head Start program doing great work. And that would make me feel good, and I know it would make Jack feel good. And we thank you for listening. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.